My mother was the oldest of four kids, and her mom was a single mom. And with four kids and the dad, leaving the state, going to another state, it was very difficult for him. And her mother became an alcoholic, which then trickled down through all that. Two kids went into foster care, two were taken care of by family members. And so I experienced the next generation of the struggles that my mom had and what she had to work through with the trauma that she had.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a front seat to that. And it's just interesting as you connect the story. And so I became a dad at a young age, had two kids. Right around 26 years old, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is something that I navigate every day. Early on, what that did is it put me in the bed in the fetal position, nonverbal, is how bad that got. As I worked through counseling and even doing, just different methods to work through that obsessive compulsive, really tough season. But if we overlay me seeing those infants at a really young age, there were moments in that obsessive compulsive that I was suicidal. Nothing that I ever acted on. But the reason is I looked at my children having that imprinted on me at 17, 18 is I can't take my life and leave this world because I leave them behind and I have to take care of them.
Yeah.
And so like every time that thought would come up, it's like, nope, it's not an option. Nope, It's not an option. And so my kids really saved my life.
Wow.
And God, having that experience. And so it all builds from that one experience. And I always look at pain to purpose. And so a lot of my pain points have become my calling and my purpose. As God has walked me through them to healing, then to be able to offer that hand out to somebody else. And so that's, it started at those infants in foster care and then bridged through my life. And then I went through a divorce after 11 years of marriage, became a single dad, lost my car, had to borrow a car. The car I borrowed was a Mazda Miata. You can't put a 3 and 5 year old in that. I was grateful because I could get back and forth to work and I didn't lose my job, but I had to borrow a different car to be able to see them and spend time with them on the weekends. And so just, through that obsessive compulsive, going through the divorce and then walking through being a single parent. And for me, the biggest thing that I needed through that time period was hope. And so giving words of hope and hands that help, which, is what I needed. And then what we want to offer our single moms is that word of hope and then that hand that helps.
It's so powerful. And this is like that. I told you, it's like having someone's hand on the small of your back and just like consistently pushing you forward, because starting anything, for-profit, nonprofit is difficult. And then to also be faced almost on a daily basis with the trigger of your trauma in the forefront of your conversations, your eyesight, like your heart. I mean, it takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of grit to just keep going. And that it's the helping hand of God that has allowed you to be where you are now. At what point in the process did you have that aha awareness moment of, I need to help people because I needed help?
Sure. It's really interesting how this developed, and God takes us through a season to prepare us for what he has before us. And so I happened to go to Honduras in 2008. I'm sitting on a school bus. I actually have the picture. I've got a folder for the beginning of Giving Words that I can go reference and look at any moment. And so I have a picture that I took in this bus, and I'm looking at a Honduran child about 7 years old digging through the dumpster. And my mind's always working. And so I'm sitting here going, why is this 7-year-old child digging through the dumpster for his necessities? And so when you look at the picture, you see half-eaten mashed potatoes from McDonald's. You see a half roll of toilet paper. So he's really getting his necessities from there. And in Honduras, if you teach a child English, it moves him from poverty to middle class because he's employable now. And he can teach his family English as well. And so my wife is an English teacher. And so the original vision for Giving Words was to go to Honduras, take recent college graduates, pay them a stipend to cover their school loans and things like that, and teach English in Honduras, and to shift this narrative.
Yeah.
And so that was what was in our sight line. And then life happened. We got back to the States. There was unrest in Honduras, so we weren't even allowed to fly into Honduras. My grandmother became ill, so I began taking care of her. And then one day I got this phone call from my daughter, which was a single mom. And it's like, Dad, I need you to come pick Charlotte up. I can't do this. And so, she was struggling with drug addiction. And so I drove down, picked Charlotte up, brought her back home. She was 4 months old. She still lives with us. She's 7. And so when we picked that torch up to take care of Charlotte, we weren't going back to Honduras. And so that vision was still just burning in my heart. I'm like, well, what can I do right here, right now? And we could help single parents and bridging that gap. And part of the story I haven't shared yet is for about 10 years, I worked on our cars in the driveway because I couldn't always afford to put them in the repair shop. And so probably about 6 years in, outside, I'm working on Jenny's car. It's pouring down rain. I've got a tarp over it, and the other half of it's nailed to the side of the building. And I just stand out from underneath the tarp. I look up, rain's hitting me on the face, and I'm like, Lord, why do I have to do it this way? Why can't I pay people to fix my car like normal people? And not audible, but what I got in my mind and my spirit is, Eddie, this is your training ground. Giving Words was not even a thought. And so what naturally happened is when I got remarried and God restored, Jenny and being a single parent, me being a single parent, and all 4 of our kids, our older daughters, Katie and Elizabeth, had friends that became single moms, and I began repairing those cars in the driveway. So a little over 5.5 years ago, Giving Words started in the driveway of our house. And so I was repairing those cars. Wow. And then my son was in the career and technical education program. And so periodically he'd come home and say, hey, can you bring us a car? We need something to do. We need something to change the oil on. And I went, I can bring you some single moms cars and y'all can start working on those. So good. And so that's how that career and technical education program developed.
Well, I think of people, despise the humble beginnings, right? That's like a saying that people have. And it's like, actually, those are the places that you said, training ground, that God actually gets to be, I think, known and trusted most. Now, we have to know him and trust him when we handle the big stuff too, right? Like as it grows, it's maybe more at that point, but it feels like it's the faith without works, right? And it's also the faith without seeing. You don't know what's to come. He's not actually shown you a vision at this point fully. He's just giving you the breadcrumb day by day, month by month, year by year. 2 words that come to mind as you were sharing. One has been, through the whole conversation when you first started, generational bondage, and also generational freedom. And then the other one that came to mind was just obedience. And the amount of obedience that it took to just day in and day out, that monotony can literally, I say kill, and I don't say that figuratively. I say that because I know what suicidal ideation feels like too, but it can get you into a place of feeling worthlessness and feeling like void and that nobody sees what you're doing. And we have to remember that we live in a day and age where everything is about the likes and the follows and the numbers and what people see exteriorly, and God is only concerned with our heart. He's only concerned with our heart. And so I feel like you just did so much growing as God was doing so much internal work in you, in your spouse, in your children, in your grandchild, and just the obedience connected to it. So first off, I just want to applaud you, and also hope that as people are hearing that they can take inventory of their own lives